We're 20 kilometers south of Winnipeg, Manitoba, which is the longitudinal center of Canada. And the Glenlea plots are located on the university's Glenlea Research Station, which is on Treaty 1 land and literally home of the Red River Métis Nation. We've got this beautiful, flat, extremely rich clay soil, one of the flattest areas in the world, in fact. And the research project that is being conducted here is to look at nitrous oxide emissions in organic oats versus conventionally managed oats. And also to look at the overall greenhouse gas budget of the systems in which they grow. When we started, in 1992, the atmospheric CO2 concentration was 352 parts per million. Today, in 2025, it's 424 parts per million. It is clearly an urgency to deal with greenhouse gases. I'm standing in front of one of the replicates of the grain-only conventional system. We have a legume in the rotation. Often we grow soybeans, Roundup-ready soybeans. This year, we were facing a drought in the spring, so we grew peas, which are much more drought tolerant. After that, we go to wheat. So this is the spring wheat crop here. And then after the wheat, we go to flax, and then we end up in the rotation with our oats. And here is a gorgeous crop of milling oats. And so what we've done in the OSC project is we look at the nitrous oxide emissions of this crop. And so we have sensors in here which are monitored every 3 times a week to look at the gases coming off of the soil. And what we find is that we get a big plume of nitrous oxide right after we apply the fertilizer in the springtime. Now, if we talk about carbon, this requires a lot of energy to produce. In fact, these pellets of fertilizer are the single largest carbon emitter connected to grain agriculture. Almost half of the fossil fuel energy used to produce a grain crop in Canada and anywhere in the industrialized agricultural system around the world is connected to producing this fertilizer. Now, by comparison, the organic system produces its nitrogen much more efficiently. So behind me, this legume species happens to be hairy vetch, which was seeded this spring, and this hairy vetch will grow all year, and it will fix as much nitrogen or more than the nitrogen fertilizer that we add in the conventional. I wanted to show you another oat crop, and so we're just going to walk over here to take a look at what I would consider a good organic oat crops. This is a rotation where we have a 2-year alfalfa crop, and that crop is here on this side, and we grow this alfalfa for 2 years, and then after that we grow wheat, and then we grow oats. So when we grow a perennial in the rotation as opposed to just 1 year of legume, it's a game changer. So what we experience is much higher yields. We experience more carbon in the soil than the annual organic rotation. And in fact, this alfalfa here puts in about 3 times more carbon into the soil than the hairy vetch does. And 2/3 of the carbon from this alfalfa going into the soil is from the roots. And that has confirmed the Holus model that these systems are sequestering the most carbon of any system that we have. It's important to consider the broader picture, not just what happens in the crop. We do both. We look at the emissions in that crop and the amount of carbon in the soil, so losses and sequestration. For example, some of these organic systems involve a lot of legumes. That legume seed has to be produced somewhere. There's energy going into that. We look both at what happens in the field that year and the broader system.
Hi, I'm Mario Tenuta. I'm a professor of soil science at the University of Manitoba, and here we are in the greenhouse gas laboratory within the department, and it's here that samples collected in the field at the Glenlea research station are analyzed and processed. In the past, we have looked at organic nitrogen sources, such as from alfalfa and from soybean and from faba bean. And one of the most phenomenal things that we found at that research site, that those legumes do not produce nitrous oxide while they're fixing the nitrogen from the atmosphere. It's quite amazing.
When you have a legume plant growing like you've seen here and you till it into the soil, that nitrogen begins to get released by microbial action. That nitrogen is at risk of being lost to nitrous oxide, especially on a beautiful warm day like today when we've had a little bit of precipitation overnight. Those are perfect conditions to release nitrous oxide. What we're doing to mitigate that is we do not till our green manure legumes into the soil in weather like this. We wait till it's much cooler in the fall, and just the science of it, because the microbes are slower in the fall because it's colder, you'll have less emissions. So that is one big distinction. A lot of organic farmers are tilling their green manures now. They will have losses. The other thing we're doing is reducing the amount of tillage, period. We use the blade roller, or it's called a knife roller. And thirdly, we never let the soil be black or brown, whatever color the soil is, for very long. When we till something in, we seed something to utilize that nitrogen. We call it the catch and release system. So those are our main strategies. And we've got research on that historically. We've done that for about the last 15 years. But here at Glenlea, we're able to put it into a system and measure it and model it. So the nice thing about the Organic Science Cluster 4 is that it challenges us to find partners to work with. So our partners are also really interested in the results. Our partners are farmers, the Prairie Oat Growers Association. The other partner is Grain Millers, which is a very large oat milling company. They want the research to know, is it even worth thinking about organic oats? And then we have the Canadian government, who's a major partner in supporting this work because they're putting in place regulations around this or incentives. Industry wants to know what the emissions are because they're starting to put those things on their products. And I would say consumers as well. You look around today, it's smoky, and climate change is part of the reason we're having this, so consumers as well. We encourage people to visit places like Glenlea. And we have a lot of tours here, and we can really explain some of the nuance, and the nuance is important. We have online presence, we have a website, we do an online course, and we've also developed tools. So we have developed a nutrient management app for organic, so it allows farmers to implement some of the nitrogen efficiency things that we talk about here. The work here helps Canadian organic growers because Glenlea is located in the center of the country where we experience wet conditions and dry conditions, so our results are applicable to Eastern Canada where it tends to be wetter and Western Canada where it tends to be drier. We've started recently testing the quality of all the grains that come off of here for the 3 decades and asking the question, is organic healthier? Does it have more micronutrient? And the answer is yes, and we know exactly why now through our soil biology work. Our work is also giving legitimacy to organic oat and other crops by actually having data on not only the environmental footprint, but the economics and the soil health benefits. So when people hear that story, they find it to be very useful.